All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube, Patreon, and all across the world. I've asked the Israelites here, not only here in the coast of the United States of America, but also in different portions of the globe, parts of the world, to actually come here and be with us here this morning because we got a message that we'd like to convey to you. And I think that it would help out. Myself and Pastor Corey is going to do present different questions to the people so that you'll see that we are all dealing with the same evil entities, the same spiritual forces, the same spiritual wickednesses that are in high places. When we come this way and we start keeping the commandments, it's ironic that we could have been any religion in the world and would have never, ever received the opposition from our natural family members on both sides of the family as we receive when we decide and we come to the knowledge of keeping Yah's commandments. When we keep Yah's commandments, all of a sudden, it seems like that things go awry. People don't mind you being religious. They don't mind you even playing church. But when you become very, very serious about your walk in the Messiah, and you start to make changes in your life, changes in being obedient to what the Bible says, all of a sudden there's this spiritual attack that comes. And what's amazing to me, Pastor, is that these people who attack, they are lacking greatly in their moral compass. They're lacking greatly in character. The majority of them are spiritually bankrupt. It's just that some way, somehow, all of these people end up disturbing their lives because they decide to actually obey the commandments, get filled with the Ruach, and follow Yah. Now, this is not a problem that's just concentrated here in the United States of America. This is a systemic spiritual problem worldwide, and that's the reason why we're here this morning. All right, so if you would take a scan, Brother Mike, so y'all can see all the Israelites, and they're different from different geographical locations. And when they speak, we'll just ask them to at least one time tell everybody where they're from. And then we'll go ahead and start getting into it to make it easy. We're going to go ahead and make it pretty easy because we're going to address and make some questions out for the saints, for the Israelites. And the reason why myself and Pastor Corey are sitting here, because Pastor Corey is a pastor out there in the Kansas area. But not only that, people also seek him out for his wisdom and knowledge worldwide in itself. So, Pastor, you know that we've been dealing with this for a while. And it seems like, and it's very heart-wrenching. Because we all think that when we come to the knowledge of the truth, that when we give this truth out to people, that they will be excited. Right. Because we want them to experience the same joy that we have. Right. But too many times, more often than not, that's not the case. Why?
Well, one of the reasons why, because people are really in bondage to religion. Actually, I mean, they are really in bondage for the fact that you've been taught traditions of men. You've been taught many things that really sit deep in you. It's a deep-rooted issue. So if you have not really sought out, if you have not really looked for those things which the book, the word of Yah talks about, then you can't really identify when you see those who have come into the knowledge of the truth, when they start keeping the commandments. You can't identify with it because when you look at your life and you look at their life, then you see there's a difference, and automatically you begin to blame ship and put the issue on them, and at that point they are in a cult or they're in some type of different thing that is not a part of what you traditionally would relate to Christ.
Mm-hmm. You know, we're going to ask a couple questions here. We're going to start right here. Can you scan the audience while I ask these questions? Okay, is anybody here addicted to drugs, opioids? Anybody practicing adultery, fornication? So pretty much everybody here believes in keeping those 10 commandments.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. So there you have the testimony of the people right here. We'll start with you, Brother Freddie. Brother Freddie, can you tell people where you're from and then give them the experience of some of the things that you and your wife have encountered over in Germany?
Yes, sir. So I'm Brother Freddie from Germany. Since I started, or my house started keeping the commandments, my family distanced themselves. It was not that I initially wanted to distance myself right away, but just because of the fact that we stopped eating pork. We stopped going to family meetings, Christmas, Easter, birthdays, all of that. People started looking at us strange. So I was actually very close with my mom, and it happened to be that after I stopped keeping those traditions, we have nothing in common anymore. So we can't even sit down at a table right now, have a freely open conversation. It's just awkward to be around each other. And then you come to find out that actually the only thing that connected you with those people were these traditions. So that was the only thing that made us see each other. And all of a sudden you stop going to these meetings, you find out there's nothing you have in common. And right now, actually, it's to the point where I got 2 little children. So it looks like the only reason why they still contacting us, still want to be with us, is because of the children. And I remember you told that recently, actually, that's the only reason the natural family members holding on to the relationship with us. They just want to have a part of their grandchildren. And yeah, it's been a journey, but it's getting more and more uncomfortable the more holier and more set apart we trying to live.
All right. All right, so, I hope that you heard exactly what he said, because the one thing that he said, and I'm going to take out of that, is that they never desired for things to go south. They never desired for things to go awry. If they could live quiet and peaceable and still get along and receive the same respect and the same honor that they actually give them, it will be fine. But the Bible teaches us clearly that a man's own foes will be there of his own household. We would never experience that in the religions that we were in. Everybody was still our friends, or at least we thought so, kinfolks and stuff. But when we really truly start coming this way, the attack spiritually is utterly amazing. My brother, you up next. Introduce yourself, you and your wife, to the audience out there, and then answer that question in your own way.
How you doing? I'm Brother Jason. This is my wife, Sister Lucia. We coming from Straightway, Houston, Texas.
And y'all speak real loud.
I'm originally from South Florida. That's where most of my family is. And before, I came into the knowledge of the truth, and I was doing the church thing, and it was really cool with them because they really have no standard whatsoever at all. They will go to church, but then they hang out at the clubs and they do the things that they wanted to do, and then it was justified on Sunday. But then when you come to the knowledge of the truth, then you realize that can't be something that the Father's going to stand for. You can't play both sides of the fence at all. And once you choose, once you decide, you're just automatically an enemy. And my family, we was a type. We was already dysfunctional family at first. But once I started to stand for something, I became the topic of everybody's conversation. The only time they would want to call me is when they actually needed something, or they the ones that think that they love me is basically to pull me during the holiday seasons. They would call for birthdays and stuff like that. And now when I stopped responding, it just became heinous. And I have, I'm a veteran, so I got really thick skin, so it's easy. It didn't really bother me at all not to answer the phone or do things like that of that nature. So what I do is when they call, and I just give them what it is. It's going to be this way, and there's nothing wrong with this way. They make it like it's, I'm trying to kill them or trying to make them do something that they shouldn't already be doing in the first place. So the attitude is very, very aggressive, but to a certain extent, because I just don't allow that kind of stuff from me in my house. So it's just easier for me to stay away. And I got perfect peace now in my house because I do hold the commandments. I do keep the feast days and only the feast days. And it's just amazing. Once you decide, it's not even, what I've noticed in my walk is, it wasn't that I was doing everything perfectly, but once I made the decision that this is the way that I wanted to go, that's when everything changed. So right from the decision, that's when everything happened. So that's been my experience so far. I wouldn't change it for the world.
So right now, Pastor Corey, we got two different testimonies right here, and none of them seem like that these people are out of touch with reality.
Right.
They don't seem like they're irrational. They don't seem like they're very cultic in mindset.
Not at all.
What do you think about that?
Well, one thing that stood out to me, Pastor, was the fact that I thought about what's written in John, where it says, if one says that he knows me and he keep not my commandments, this one, I said, the truth is not in him.
That's right.
And this one is a liar. And so thinking about that, when Brother Freddie said that only thing we had in common was tradition. Now I really think about that, because you think about how many people that knew us. They knew we had a sound mind. We had things that we did that was, of the same thought process that they had. But as soon as we started keeping the commandments, then it's just like we switched into some other world, some other planet, and they have not taken the time to really see the wisdom that we have now gained is the same wisdom we want to share, but it's just that they're not open to it, meaning that they don't know us, neither do they know Christ.
That's right.
So
That's right.
that's what I'm taking from this, Pastor, and it's just one of those things that people are going to have to deal with when it comes to enter into those gates.
Yes, sir. This next brother right here is near and dear to my heart. All of them are, only because he's more crazy than I am. I mean, after all, they make jokes about people who jump out of airplanes. You understand what I mean? But this one is unique. Everybody knows I'm a veteran, but he's a retired airborne ranger. And what's amazing to me is this. When we're in the world, we're playing collegiate sports, or we're playing professional football, or if we are in the military. Right now, the United States of America has this hero mentality where they're exalting the military. When we're in the military, everybody would consider us a warrior, somebody honorable, somebody to look up to, somebody to actually, have your children will want to be around to be able to learn something, to be able to impart something into them. There's an automatic honor and respect. When we come home, everybody comes around, they want to see us, want to speak to us, want to hear about the stories or some of the accounts that we've been through in life. But then all of a sudden, when we really truly start coming to Christ, after you get finished coming back from the war zone, all of a sudden, all that respect and all that honor is lost. We're over here next to Brother Gideon and his wife right here. Brother Gideon, tell us about that experience about natural family members and the opposition that you and your wife has received and the choice and decisions you have made from that point on in order to keep peace in your home.
Yes, sir. It was quite a bit of a change when I came out originally. When I was out there hell raising and drinking and stuff like that, it seemed like everybody liked me. I was the highlight of the party. Everybody wanted to be around me and stuff like that. And then when I came out of the world and started, obeying the law, statutes, and commandments, all of a sudden now I'm not so liked no more. Nobody wants to be around me. They look at me. I was told that I was passionately unhinged because of what I'm doing now. Because I love the Most High Yah, and I love what He does for me and my wife. I was never a religious person. I don't know nothing about no church. I never went to churches. I didn't do none of that. But Yah touched me and brought me over here and introduced me to my lovely wife. And she knows more about coming out of the world because of some of the things she did and her family, the things that she went through. And it's terrible. It's just really terrible about how her family has treated her, and telling her about the way she dressed. I got in an argument with her family because of that. And it bothered me to the point where we don't even talk to them no more. Like, we're done. You're done. You're done. And we didn't want that. We went to there to talk to them, not to try to convert them or tell them anything. We're just living our lives or whatever. But then they're going to tell her, how you dress. I don't like how you dress. Like, how dare you tell my wife how she dressed? That's nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? She's doing it for me, and she's showing respect for me, And it's just these people in the world. It's just crazy, man. It really bothers me that you don't like me because I love the Lord. That's terrible. Shame on you. Shame on you. That's all I gotta say right now.
Now, your wife, Sister Bridget, you're a school teacher.
Yes, sir.
So after this world saw it, they will look at you as an educator, and they will say, wow, come on, first line teachers. I mean, after all, you're there to give positive influence to the students and stuff. And not only that, you grew up religious.
Yes, sir.
You was apostolic. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So you know about the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, and the tongues of fire and the whole 9 yards, right?
Yes, sir.
Huh. So how was it for you, your experience of negativity that you had with your family, but then also to have someone that is your head that defends you
Yes, sir.
and your honor?
Yes, sir. Well, like you said, I was always a Christian, so my family members always knew me as the religious one in the family. But when I came into the faith and came into truth, and I started changing my appearance and dressing modest, stop eating pork, stop celebrating the traditional holidays, all of a sudden I became legalistic. So now I've taken it to another level. So, as they would say, it doesn't take all of that. And the Old Testament, the laws, they're done away with. So I got that criticism that I was going too far. And when you try to explain to family, you sit down and you try to educate them, they hear you and they say, oh, I understand, but it still doesn't take all of that. So at that point, you have to leave it alone. This is the way I choose to live my life. If you want to call me legalistic, so be it. God's going to be the judge in the end. I love my family, but at times you have to separate yourself from them. You try to teach them truth because you want them to know truth. You want them to go to the kingdom, but they can't see it. The eyes are blind. And so for me, I just had to walk away in love. And I said, when you're ready for truth, come. And we would love to sit down and share with you. But until then, we have to distance ourselves. And so that's the way we've handled it. And some family members are respectful. They don't like it. It's obvious. They won't say anything. But there are others that have been very verbal and very opinionated. And the interesting part is when they come to us with these questions and ask us, are we in a cult or do we really know what we're doing? They don't know the Bible themselves. And so the argument that my husband had with one of the family members, when he tried to show them, she wasn't interested. She said, I don't want to see it. So they didn't want to see truth. They are happy with the traditional Christian ways, and they don't want to see anything different. Even when they know, even when you show them, they're still blinded. And at that point, you have to walk away. And so that's how we've dealt with it.
You know, Pastor, it's amazing the spirit of Antichrist, isn't it? Because you would think that all these religious people, I mean, these are churched folks.
Right.
You know, they've been churched all their life, you know. You get it? And you would think that the topic of conversation of talking about Jesus, Yeshua, are you following me, would be a conversation that everybody would just love to have.
Right.
But as their experience explained here, that as soon as you start bringing up the Bible, these people don't want to hear about the Bible. They come totally antichrist, come totally against it. What said you?
Well, Pastor, she is exactly on point when you try to bring to light. I mean, you want to take these folks right there to the scriptures where it's written on the pages, and they deny it. They don't want to see. They don't want you doing it, and they definitely not doing it. And that's where we are, Pastor. It's just that simple.
You know what's amazing? We heard Brother Gideon's wife speak, right?
Yes, sir.
And one of the charges that is constantly levied against us is that our women don't have a mind of their own and they don't know how to speak. Well, she spoke better than all of us so far, you know, especially me. I mean, you can tell she know how to put them words together, and she is conscious in thought.
Yes,
Isn't that right? So let's go all the way over here to the upper state over there, to the couple that's been married. Y'all coming up on a year, right?
Yes, sir.
Coming up on a year. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people out there, and then tell them about some of the opposition that you've experienced, because y'all come from a 7-day Adventist background. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Brother Dominic.
My brother Dominic, coming down from New York, city of dreams or nightmares. And this is my wife's sister Rachel, recently married not too long ago. Our background, both of us actually, are coming from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Growing up, my family was very religious. My father is actually the first elder of my church that I was at. The way we grew up, we were in church all the time, and we were very well known because my family is actually a family of musicians. And coming out of the transition from the Seventh-day Adventist Church to coming to this newfound truth, it was very difficult, so to say, because the traditions that we were in before had similarities, but there was always a flaw. So for instance, coming up now is the Passover. And around this time of year in the SDA church, they'll probably be doing communion. And I've always questioned that, why is that? Communion, Passover, Easter, what is the difference between it all? And that was the confusion that I was in the SDA church and coming to the truth. Now, my family coming to this truth, they saw that we were following Pastor Dowell, and the first thing that they would do is hit Google, and when you Google something so great, the worst things always come up. So right off the bat, oh, you're in this cult, what are you guys doing? And my brother was actually the first one to come to this truth. So they're just, oh, you following your brother? I don't know what's the matter with you children, And there was a big stigma on Straightway Truth for all the bad publicity that they have online. But we came anyway. We decided, we took the leap. And coming here, it's been so phenomenal. I'll say one big thing is being in the SDA church, you'll never have a family. You will all have your own separate housings, your own separate dwelling places. But as far as having family and a close-knitness, you'll never have it because of the community-based mindset that we have here. Another thing is they do teach the dietary laws and they do keep the Sabbath, but as far as mingling with other religions, you'll see SDA people in any Sunday worshiping church, especially the musicians. Musicians are playing at the club on Friday night. Saturday morning, they're playing at the Sabbath Keeping Church, and on Sunday, they're at the Easter program coming up. I'm sure my wife would have more to say about her experience.
My experience coming out was actually very interesting as well too. My father actually is an elder at the church that I last attended, a Seventh-day Adventist church as well. One thing that actually stood out at the church, I was very involved. I was always working with the children, always doing my best to try to be involved, but mostly just to please my parents, not really because I had a relationship with the Most High. So from the moment that I made a decision that I was going to follow the commandments, keep the laws, the statutes, I explained this to my parents to be honorable to them. And one thing my mom actually said to me was, well, you can do what you gotta do, but just come to the church on Sunday and on Saturday actually, and act like you're Seventh-day Adventist. And for me, it was like, no, I'm done with the people pleasing. I would love to honor you, I would love to obey you, but this is a point where I have to cross over and choose to obey the Most High rather than obeying you in this sense. And it's not in opposition, but actually I would rather choose to obey the Most High. So there was a lot of expectation of people pleasing, and they were very frustrated coming, having meetings with me often, even speaking with my husband, then we were betrothed, just asking questions, not understanding. But I would say, that's all I have to say. It was just a decision that I made that, I'm tired of the people pleasing. I'm tired of, doing things for other people, but rather actually having a close-knit or actually striving to have a relationship with the Most High and just choosing to please Him entirely.
All right, let's immediately go to Indiana here to Brother Samuel. Brother Samuel, of course, you've been with us for a little bit.
Yes, sir.
You recently graduated college, is that correct?
Yes,
From
sir.
Purdue University?
Yes, sir.
So I wouldn't think that after the world saw they would consider you to be a dum-dum.
No, sir.
All right, a little bit educated there, right?
Tad.
Of course, you pastor, we just saw again that there's another sister know how to talk too.
Yes, sir.
You know, all our sisters seem to know how to do that. You know what I mean? All right. But anyway, Brother Samuel, give us your experience there. Give us your experience.
I grew up in the church. My dad actually was a pastor, and so I was always in the church, just like you, just always, sun up, sundown, always in the church, helping, doing everything. So growing up, I had a yearning for the truth. I had a yearning for the Bible, so I would actually read my Bible. I wouldn't stay in Sunday school. I'd be up front with everybody else because the stuff they were teaching in Sunday school was just for babies, and I didn't like it. So the more and more I started studying, the more and more I kept having questions, like, if Jesus said that we'd be hated of all men's sake, why is everybody our friend? And just little things like that I never could get answered. And it actually happened it was my senior year in high school in 2011. My older brother Josiah, he's down in Texas, he saw one of your videos about Christmas and you were debunking it. So he showed it to me, and after work I looked at it and immediately went to my Bible, fact checked, and I was like, this stuff is right. And after that, it was a wrap. I kept listening, and you know, trying to move and finesse through college, still trying to learn more about this and trying to reconcile the two. Finally came to the point they can't be reconciled. I got to choose one way or the other, and I chose Yah, and all hell broke loose. I was kind of big man on campus. Everybody knew me, everything, and in my time of need, nobody was there. All because I wanted to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. Suddenly, I'm the bad guy. Me and my wife in college, she's college educated, actually studying to be a teacher and everything, so well-spoken as well. Suddenly, we're both crazy. Suddenly, because I'm learning to be a man from pastor who's essentially become my father, now they see me as abusive because I'm taking back my place as a man and being a patriarch in my home, because I'm disciplining my son so that he acts right, so that he knows how he's supposed to behave, and eventually can take my place as a man to be better than me. But all because my sole desire, even when I was a child, was I just wanted to have a family. And I just wanted to be a good husband and a good father. And now that I finally found how to do that through the Bible that I always read but never really understood, suddenly I'm evil. You know, suddenly I'm oppressive. Suddenly people don't want to talk to me. The family that used to love me being around, always wanted me to help them, always wanted me to tutor them, would come to me for guidance in any little matter. It's like the moment you decide, even in your heart, you don't have to say anything, to love Yah and obey him, just something spiritual happens where they just begin to hate you. You know, a day earlier, they would come to you and wanted to talk to you, and then the next moment where you're trying to sit down and show them the book, they don't recognize you. And you're like, I'm the same person I was yesterday. What's wrong? And like that discerning, that frustration, that this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. You need to have this, and they don't want it. And for a while, that was really frustrating. And it finally got to the point. I remember one time, my mom, I was off of school for winter break, and they were going through a Christmas party, and she kept asking me to go. And I just respectfully declined, but it got to the point she just kept pushing, and I kind of snapped. I was like, Mom, I'm not going to celebrate paganism and idolatry. And she actually suggested that I go to this Christmas party to explain to the people at the Christmas party why they shouldn't be keeping Christmas. And that doesn't make sense. How am I going to wreck their party? They're just going to keep having their party. So little things like that, they just kind of coalesce, and it was actually a blessing to go off to college, because for me, that kind of separated me away from them. So I didn't really have to do a lot of separating from my family. And once I studied and came back and be studying the truth, listening to Pastor, I could come back, and I was that much stronger in the Word to debunk anything that they were trying to kind of pull me back into. So for me, especially having a family now, the main opposition I get is from the in-laws. And like you said, brother, all they want is the children. You know, they don't care anything about you. They want those children. And I've learned from experience that it's not that they just want to spend time with the children. They actually want to infect the children with their paganism and their idolatry and the lies and the traditions that they grew up with. They want your children to keep Christmas. They want your children to celebrate birthdays. They want your children they want you to lie to your children and then expect your children not to lie to you. That's hypocrisy. And when you stand up against that, suddenly you're evil. When you tell your child, no, you can't have ice cream, you need spinach, suddenly you're evil. I mean, just the little things like that they begin to display in their character, their spirit, that you can discern when it's disturbed, and they're trying to disturb the whole atmosphere to the point that they become militant. And, you know, like you guys, you just got to separate yourself from that. And that's what I've learned, to just secret ourselves away and don't even fuss with them, because it's just going to be a headache that we don't need.
All right. Hey, Pastor, we're hearing these, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, both of us, we've been to this next brother's house, broken bread up there.
Yes, sir.
Spent some time, slept in his home. Lover of hospitality. You can actually see on the wall heading up to the pool, it looks like a swimming pool, but it's actually a baptism pool, because he has on the wall a plaque up there. Now, mind you, they have received the same opposition as everybody else has with natural family.
Yes, sir.
And you can't understand why. It's obvious when, as soon as you step foot on his grounds, on his lands, that he has always had the fear of Jesus.
That's it.
And he, like many other people here in the ministry right here, has actually lost the family. Not because they wanted to, but because the family said that he was in a cult, and mind you, it started with him prior to actually knowing straightway.
Yes, sir.
But since then, he has recovered very well. He's had a strong support base. He's very encouraged. He's actually a celebrity out there in the world.
Yes, sir.
You follow me? He's well known. He's actually in the Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame. And his brother, right next to him, he played with him. Brother Daniel did. Let me see now. Kabir, he played for, I think, 8 or 9, 10 years, something like that. All right, so you would think that this man is very successful, been to the pinnacle of the sport, wouldn't have all this opposition.
Right.
Because they look like the actual model family. Are you following me?
Yes, sir.
And as soon as he started really, truly keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, he started receiving problems. Now, for those of you who actually want to check it out, he wore number 94. Brother Daniel, when he played with the Green Bay Packers, he wore number 77, and he wore number 90 with the Indianapolis Colts. So we have people that have been to the pinnacle. Brother Daniel actually played in the Super Bowl, which the Colts at that time did not win that Super Bowl. But he's been to what people call the zenith or the pinnacle of professional sports. And he himself has also received the exact same opposition. But with this case right here, his wife decided to actually follow him, respect him, and love him.
Yes, sir.
What's been your experience with this man? Give a testimony of his character before we have him to speak.
Well, with Brother Kabir, it's been, you know, like you said, Pastor, you know, walking through his house, you know, I saw pew benches with the menorah on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, okay, you how long
You've been doing this? Yeah.
He said, I just always had something in me. I always questioned everything. So I knew then he had a love. Like you said, going to the pool, you can see there's a plaque on the wall of everybody who's been baptized at this man's house. So he is just absolutely a man after this faith, a man that wants to walk this out at all costs. And so it's been great.
So, Brother Kabir, you ever seen a lot of opposition in the world? Not only in the world, because you are sought after speaker and been to many, many different places. But this particular video is about the opposition of natural family members. Can you go ahead and speak to the audience out there to try to give them a little understanding of the opposition that they themselves might experience coming this way, keeping the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High Yah?
Most definitely. So it's interesting. When I grew up, in a home where dad was a Muslim, mom was a Christian, and when I eventually became a believer in Jesus Christ, I read something in the Bible where Jesus said that to be my disciples, you have to hate your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your wife, and your children, and yes, even your own life. And so when I came in to become a Christian 17 years ago, being my dad was a Muslim, I remember him, alluding to or just flat out saying that if we became a Christian, and it was kind of weird because mom was a Christian, but that he would disown us, and that's what a Muslim is supposed to do. They're supposed to disown or even kill. It's depending on what country you are. So anyway, I had that fear that and I love my dad. My dad is a good man in the sense of he was a good father, raised me in the hood, and just very disciplined man, and I love him, and I'm taking care of him today. But I had that fear factor that I could lose my relationship with my dad when I came to know Jesus as a Christian. And so I remember that scripture, all these scriptures. And so when I became a Christian, something that got to me, I said, how do I not know that I could probably get my dad to come in a way and not say, well, I'm not going to join because my dad's not going to join. I'm not going to go to hell because my dad's not going to go. And so I overcame. And guess what? I have a relationship with my dad. He lives with me in Green Bay. I take care of him. I have a great relationship. He's actually been my biggest supporter. He has not come in the way, but as a Muslim, he's been my biggest supporter right now. Always checking on me, say, "Are you doing okay?" I'm like, "Dad, I'm okay. Just don't worry about me. I'm okay. I'm here." But I came into that way. I had to deal with my mom. My mom was a believer, and she thought I joined a cult. And this is a Christian now. She's a Christian, but I just took it to a whole nother level because I came through. I became a believer through the Old Testament. And when I say that, at the time, a lot of Christians kept on pointing me to John 3:16 or the New Testament. I said, man, what's in this Old Testament that they're hiding? So I started in the Old Testament because I thought I was going to find dirt. Well, it was there that I found the grace of God. I figured out why I deserve to go to hell because of all the sin. And so when I recognized, I was like, man, I am a sinner. And now Jesus all of a sudden made sense because I was afraid to go to hell. So I ran to Jesus in fear of going to hell and went from fear of going to hell to now gratitude to saying, man, what can I do to show you that I love you? And now all those gospels start making sense because now Jesus says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Now, at the time, I'm still trying to understand what that all meant because at the time they said the commandments are done away with. Well, I said, well, I'm just going to take his commandments and just turn it into, well, if it was good for his people, it's going to be good for me. So I started keeping I was keeping the dietary law 17 years ago. I wasn't eating pork, but I had to stop eating the shrimp and the catfish and all the stuff, black folks like to eat. And so I just had to stop that stuff. And I remember the first time I said, I'm not eating shrimp anymore. I remember I went to an NFL event and all they had was shrimp. And they had leads, and so I was just eating the leads because that's I was tested right off the bat, So I was dedicated to following Christ. So anyway, now I'm coming to this. I had to overcome, just being in the NFL. Anybody that played in the NFL, you're gonna have all these people that want to be your friends, uncle, siblings. And so I was very good at saying no when it came to money because they just wanted play money. They call it play money. I don't know it's hard to make this money. It's not monopoly money. You know what I'm saying? So, but I had to overcome that. People thought like I came out of the Bible. So I overcame all this stuff. And I remember when I met my wife at the time, she kind of influenced me in Christ Jesus. And that's how I kind of came into the way. And that's when my parents started like, man, be careful with her and all this stuff. You listen to her, not us, and everything. So anyway, I came into the faith, and I remember telling myself in the privacy of my own heart that I would never have to choose between my wife and Jesus because she's a believer. That's what I thought, right? Mm-hmm. I'm thinking like, man, this is good. So I went from one natural family now to I'm becoming one flesh with my wife, and thought I just would never have to deal with this situation. Well, Yah had a different scenario for me. 16 years later. 16 years in marriage and 17 years in following Jesus Christ, all of a sudden me and my wife started getting into some debate about, the image of God and man being created in the image and head covers. And so I'm just wrestling with this because now I have a daughter I have to deal with. And, I had 6 boys up to this point, and now I have a daughter. I was hoping it was another boy because I didn't want to have to dealing with a girl, Not that I don't love women, I knew that it was going to force me to have to deal with my wife. And so now I have a girl, and I'm going to be as faithful as I have been with my sons, with my daughter. And so I was like, how I'm going to raise her? And I remember the Holy Spirit just put on me and says, don't raise her like your Christian friends. At that time, that made no sense to me. Christian friends, where am I going to go? To the world? And so I'm like, hey, God, I need some examples here. And so 3 names that came up: Esther, Ruth, Mary. I said, okay, there's books named after 2 of them. We know about Mary. So I start reading the book about these women, like, wow. And then start recognizing my wife is nothing like these women. And so then I'm starting to say, I want to start raising my daughter more in this thing. And so everything I start reading in the Bible, I've read the Bible like at least 7 times. I stop at 7, but at least 7 times. And at this time, I'm starting to look at certain things about the woman's role. And because I want to raise my daughter for her future husband. I'm trying to raise her in such a way, for Jesus Christ. So anyway, me and my wife is getting very attention, and all of a sudden I had a vision or a dream. And in this dream, God, reminded me of what I told myself 17 years ago, that I would never have to choose between him and my wife. And he says, you have been putting your wife before me. I said, no. And he says, do you lie? I said, Jesus, I love you. I'm talking about trembling in fear. And he says, you will be tested. It was, now I'm saying it like it's kind of clear, but it wasn't that clear. It was just, I just knew that I did something wrong, and just the presence alone, and I would be tested. I remember rolling off the bed. I'm talking about trembling in fear. I called my wife. I said, babe, I know that we've been having some tensions, but I need you to, I said, do you believe Jesus told you to marry me? She says, yes. I said, okay, I need you to follow my lead. Trust Jesus Christ for my leadership. I need you to follow my lead. And I confessed. There's healing in confession. I confess. I said, I've been putting you before Jesus because of fear of rejection, and I've been practicing idol worshiping, and I can't do this anymore. And I didn't know where this test was going to come from. So now, just because this whole head cover, I run into Pastor Dowell stuff. I'm looking at this stuff, and he started talking about, I think it was polygyny. I'm thinking like, oh, this is a pastor actually acknowledges the truth. So what got me into the door to want to listen to more what Pastor Dowell had to say? Because none of the Christian pastors you could talk about polygyny. It's a sin. They just react. But this pastor was honest enough to the text, saying that this is not a sin because the Bible doesn't mention it. So I got into the door, and I'm thinking like, wow. And then the first thing I went to was Sabbath. And I went through his I think it was 10, 11 videos. I went through his old video, watched the whole thing about the Sabbath, and I said, you know something? I was convicted immediately. This is what I'm talking about. I didn't wait 2 days, a week, 3 months. I think I watched it on Saturday. I said, we're going to do it right now. And now, I didn't know what it looked like. I'm just saying, guys, don't play. Just stop. We're going to enter his rest. You can sleep, and you can read the Bible, but we just all about Jesus. We're going to enter his rest. Well, when I did that, that's when things started happening. So then I reached out to Straightway to find out, how do you guys do it? And he says that we can come over and visit. I decided to come and visit. But by the time I wanted to come and visit, my wife ended up planning an escape route, and she ended up taking the kids and leaving. And so I've been in this battle, and I wouldn't have been able to get through if it wasn't for the Most High, bringing Straightway, Pastor Dowell, and Straightway. I wouldn't even be here, standing here. So that's kind of how I ended up coming to the faith. And what's interesting about this is it wasn't about just I had to choose between Jesus and my wife, but now the Christian community. I became so big in the Christian community, spoke to so many different churches, just in the Wisconsin, I can't even say Green Bay, but just in the Wisconsin area. And to see the rejection, the evil, everything that I've experienced, I think the higher you go up, the harder you fall. And I'll end on this note. It's kind of like what Jesus says. He says that, when the people that hear my voice and actually put into practice, like a man who built his house on the rock. And the people who don't are the people that built their house on sand. My marriage was built on Christianity, and it was sandy ground. And when the Most High called on me, we weren't able to make that move because my wife was trained that everything had to work with her blessing. And so when Yah called me, my husband called me, I wasn't able to get my family to go because my wife was trained that no, you don't move until I'm okay with it. And that's not the way Yah works, just order. When he goes, I go, she goes, the kids go. Mm-hmm. And so because of how Christianity works, everything revolves around the woman. We couldn't handle, our family could not handle because our marriage was built on sandy ground. But with Straightway, our marriage, whatever happens from here on out is going to be built on solid ground. It's hard, but it's going to be built on that solid rock that wherever I go, whoever that new woman be or my wife to come back, we're going to be following Yeshua all the way. So anyway, that's my story of how this all happened, and it's been hard, but I praise Yah for Straightway and Pastor Dowell just coaching me. I know he's a pastor, but he felt like a coach. He talks like a coach, and say, hey, give me another one. So he's been a great mentor and a coach for me to be able to be where I am today.
Pastor Corey, what do you got to say about that? After all, you've been there with him. You understand.
Ooh, Pastor, that is. He put it so sound, especially when he said when Yah called on him. Mm-hmm. To make me think about all the time when I talk to the brothers about Joshua, when he said, as for me and my house, we're going to choose to serve Yah. Mm-hmm. And so that he was ready to do it because he heard, like he heard immediately. And that's one of the prime examples when you don't have the truth in you. You don't know when the truth shows up at your door and you can't respond properly as Brother Kabir was ready to do. And it's just a powerful, powerful testimony, seeing that, guess what? You're going to be persecuted in this. You're going to be persecuted for his name's sake. And if you ain't being persecuted, you need to reevaluate where you at and what you are in. Because I don't think you're in the right thing if you're not getting this type of persecution. These are real testimonies. Real people from every walk of life. And you see all of us are standing here. None of these folks are on drugs. Nobody's hurting. Nobody's faking. We're not being coerced. There's no guns out here making us do this video. This is real stuff. And these people who've seen it, we've all seen what the truth is. Pastor Dowell has truly followed Yah. And this thing is just amazing. You hear it. Nobody's paid here. These guys are not paid. That's it, Pastor.
Now he really made a big mistake, because his friend, his colleague that played right along next to him, he's a student of the Bible. So if Kabir had done lost his mind, done fallen off the proverbial apple cart, off the deep end, he was getting ready to get checked. So Brother Kabir went and told his friend about Yahshua and the truth of keeping his commandments. And of course, that also introduces him to straight way. And so we're talking about a man that just doesn't swallow anything that comes down the pike. But he himself, along with everybody else you have heard here, have experienced the opposition of natural family members. Brother Daniel.
Yes, sir.
I think you told me that was pretty much the best day of your life when this man introduced you to that truth.
Yes, it was.
And you knew the truth better than he did.
Really what happened is I grew up, and I know many people say they grew up in church. I grew up in church. My father is a minister. The thing is Kabir told me he would always get my texts every Tuesday, because I do a Bible study, a men's Bible study every Tuesday. But I always question, because I said, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. When I read the words that Jesus say, the works that I do, you'll do also, and greater works than these, you'll do. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not seeing this nowhere. And it was really mind-blowing to me. And then Kabir sent me a video. And he said, look, brother, check it out. It was like a 6-minute video. And it ended up taking me almost a week, because I just kept pressing pause, and I would get my Bible, and I would read, and I would go back, press pause again, and I would read, and I'm just like, man, hold up, wait a minute. And what it did is it just sent me on the trail. And I just constantly, I just kept looking at video after video after video, because I'm like, man, I got to prove this here was wrong. I was like, I'm going to prove this wrong.
Right.
And I kept going, and kept going. But what started to happen, and this was right around the pagan days that was coming around with Christmas. And at the time, my wife is excited, kids excited, and I'm boiling inside. Because I'm like, wait a minute, I just found out the truth about this thing. And then I read Jeremiah 10 and look, and I see a Christmas tree up in my house. And it was just tormenting me. And my wife knew something was going on. And I told her, I said, look, after this foolishness is over, it's a whole lot getting ready to change around here. And she kind of bucked a little bit, but one thing I know about my wife is my wife loved me. The Father heard my prayer from when I was a kid, and I never realized it. I used to see my mom and dad fuss and fight and argue. And as a boy, I used to run in the closet. And I used to always pray, and I used to say, Father, when I get old, can you give me a wife that loves me so I can love her? And that's exactly what he did. And my wife followed me. Now, she came kicking a little bit at first, but as soon as that pagan day was over with, she saw me dragging that Christmas tree out that house, tossing in the trash, ornaments, and all that foolishness. And that's when I started to show my wife. I started to read to my wife more, because that's what I wasn't doing. I would go read to everybody else, talk to everybody else, but I wasn't covering my wife. And I really started to read over my wife and show my wife, and I just kept praying, because I came across one verse that changed my life. And that was Acts 15:21. Where Shaul was speaking, and he was basically saying, don't put the whole law on them just yet. Why? Because in every city, on every Shabbat, Moses is preached.
So what I realized then, the Father showed me then, is you got to start living it. You just got to start living it. And here it was, maybe a couple weeks later, my wife calls me, and she says to me, honey, I said, hey, how you doing? She said, I never want to be called a Christian ever again in my life. And I said, huh? And I did one of them silent cheers, you know? I was driving and I just, you know? And I got home and she was just explaining to me what she found. She's like, this is just evil. And I was like, see? And of course I'm thanking the Father, and that's when we really started to go. And after that is when we came up for a Shabbat to Kabir's house. Because it was the same thing. I wanted to see how you do it. And then I knew Pastor Corey was coming, and Kabir was like, man, I got to get you to meet this brother. Y'all in the same line of work. So I was like, okay, let's go. And I went up, and I never saw nothing like this in my life. I never saw, the first thing I saw and noticed were the sisters. I've never seen sisters who truly love their husbands like this. It wasn't an act. It's not a show. It's total submission. But it's all to the glory of the Father. Because they realize, I want to show the Father I love him. So I got to love my husband. And I started to see that. And then as well, sitting down and going through deliverance and hearing Pastor Corey preach to us that Shabbat, and I'm like, man, this is amazing. I've never seen nothing like this. I've never experienced love like this. It was authentic. And after that, came back home, and the Father just constantly showing me, look, it's simple. Believe my son, do what I say. That's it. And that's when it hit me again. The kingdom of Yah is like a man who finds a treasure in the field. He goes back and he sells everything he owes. He comes back and he buys that field. I got it. I said, here it is. I'm 34 years old. 34 years old. And I know men who've been in church 40, 50 years, 70 years old, and don't know the answer. Here it is. I'm 34 years old, and I have the answer to life. Hallelujah. It's answered. And I'm like, and the thing that blows my mind is, I'm like, and I keep going back to hearing y'all say, the Father's just not dealing with him. Because I'm like, don't y'all see this? This is the answer to everything. Just obey. That's it. And I appreciate it. And the reason why I definitely appreciate you, Pastor, and I appreciate this ministry is because you're dealing with men here. You're not dealing with no cowards. When I was in the NFL, I hated being around them coaches that would say, oh, you're doing a good job, but then go upstairs and tell them how you was terrible. I had a defensive line coach in Indy that didn't like me. And he told me flat out, you suck. And I appreciated that. Because at least he told me the way he felt. And when I got down here, I understood that even being around more of the brothers just these last couple days is, they gonna tell you what it is. If you messing up, they gonna check you. And this is what I need. I need brothers like that that can tell me honestly, hey, that's a good job. Hey, bro, stay away from this. Brother Claudio, we went up to Green Bay. My son was playing with that Pokemon stuff. Brother Claudio came over to me and said, brother, you need to take that out of here. And they said, go look into it. And it wasn't no kicking and screaming. It wasn't like, man, who was this? No, I took it out of there. I went home and I looked into it and got rid of it because I saw what it was. And it was really just that. And now that I can truly say I'm walking in the truth, first thing is getting ready to happen is I'm getting up out of these wicked cities. That's what's getting ready to happen now. Me and my wife is just speaking about it again. So we can get us some land somewhere and get out of these cities and be around the saints of the Most High. And I leave like this too. Lastly, is my wife for literally like the last year and a half. She just kept saying, I need to be around my people. I need to be around my people. She said, I don't even know what that means, but I need to be around my people. And she kept saying that. And here it is. We're around our people. This is exactly what it's supposed to be. So I thank you, Pastor. I thank Straightway, and most importantly, I thank the Most High.
How have you dealt with the opposition of family?
Yes. I was speaking to my mom. She told me, I will never read the Bible with you ever again. Because I started to question these things. I said, wait a minute. You got to question. Look, Yeshua said, the Pharisees and scribes sit in Moses' seat and teach you to observe. He says, see to it that you observe and do. Do. The key word do, not say, because that's what Christianity does. Say. Do. He says, but don't do what they don't do after their works. Right? So I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, immediately, what did I do? I looked up Moses' seat. What does that mean? Where is it? I found out they still have it. When you sat in that seat, you had to be speaking them first 5 books. And he said, do it. So when I started to bring these things to people, obviously, they kick and scream. Why? Because now you know you got a choice to make. This thing it's not sneaky. You got to make a conscious decision whether you're going to obey or if you're going to rebel. Bottom line. And once I started to understand that sin being the transgression of the law, sin is the law is the knowledge of sin. Okay, keep the law then. It's that simple. Because of what his son has done for me. So I got the opposition from my mom. I was praying with my aunt one time. I said, Yeshua. She said, it's Jesus. In the middle of while we was praying, I said, I'm saying the same thing, all right? But she got mad at me. But, most importantly, at the end of the day, the biggest thing is live it. Let our life show who he is. Let our life show who he is. That was the biggest thing for me.
We're going to go across the pond again to the Netherlands. That is right, isn't it, Brother Case?
That's correct.
Brother Case, the Netherlands over here. Brother Case, you've been with us for a while. Been on quite a few videos. What type of family opposition, if any, you have received by following the way?
Well, since I don't have any family or believers, basically, or any friends, I would say 99% of my family and former friends were non-believers. So when they found out, they thought, well, that's really strange you choose this, but we'll see and we'll go away. And I was just continuing in the faith and looking and learning. And they were kind of, my parents were kind of like, this is really weird. He's really seeing this through. And they kind of get pissed off and like irritated every time I talked about it. So I will quickly stop talking about it. And because they knew at the point that when they go completely against me, I would be gone, and that's it. So they were kind of like, okay, we don't want to make a big fight because we probably don't see him again. So my former friends in the world, they would just think it was really weird, but they didn't much bother with it. They were not religious, and some I even speak today, and they're fine with it to a certain point. And concerning natural family members, I basically was the one who distanced myself from everybody. So, in a sense, like huge opposition, no, not really. But I do notice though the people who don't believe around me, like non-believers, like the majority, they still watch you and see what you're doing. That's the main thing. They're how you say it? Like you're not a hypocrite. Mm-hmm. So they're gonna really watch you, even though they're not believers. They say, okay, they let you go, but once you go back, then they got you. Mm-hmm. They say, oh, he was not real. So that's basically my short testimony.
So Brother Case is one that didn't really have all that kind of opposition because he pretty much kept it away from him. And that's what I pretty much did. As soon as they started questioning me, concerning me being a so-called cult, how could I be a cult when it was nobody but me and my wife? You understand what I mean? I was in a cult, but it was nobody but me and my wife and my 2 children. Hey, you follow me? And so I pretty much just separated from them and came out here. You know what I mean? And it made no difference to me if I saw them not ever again, because respect is mutual. It runs both ways. If you can't respect me, then I can no longer respect you, but I'm not going to dishonor you by disrespecting you. I'm going to vote with my feet. What do you say, Pastor?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Pastor, in the fact that just hearing all the testimonies, you know, I'll share this quick about the church we was at. We was at Word Revival Church. You know, this guy had churches on satellite church all over the world. And we had an issue. There was this guy, quote unquote, supposed to be a pastor at the church. And he was taking money from the members. You know, he was pretending to get in business or whatever it was. And being he's a pastor, you trust in him. And so we had an issue where we took it to the church. And one of the care pastors said, just pray about it. And I said, no, the amount of money that's in this,
Right.
it ain't too much prayer. We need to get to a solution. So they didn't want to do anything about it. So Sister Gabby got on Facebook and started blasting them out. 5 minutes, we get a call. So we meet with them and we tell them, look, here's what it says in the Word. I got an alt with this brother. I went to him, nothing happened. So now we're coming back to you, and you don't want to go to him. We're not following the Word. Why are we not following what it says here? And they never did anything. So in that's when that turned our mind to know that the church is not following the book.
There you go.
And so in that, when you start showing people, you're giving them testimonies, you're showing people exactly how they are off in their belief. They just don't want it. And so I'm like you. I just, whatever, like my brother Sylvester that just came, I told all of them, I said, man, look, this is what I'm doing. You don't have to do it. I don't care what y'all do, but I'm going to be doing this till the breath go out of my body or till Yahshua come. And that's where I'm at. And this is what we're about. So if family don't want it, they don't have to have this, because we know we're in the truth. We know we're in the truth, Pastor.
So we got a couple more here. We're going to go ahead and finish this up here. But again, Kabir strikes again. He strikes again, and he's talking to a friend who just so happened after the world saw being an engineer. Now, you know, to be an engineer in the world, you do have to go to school for a long time, and you have to have some type of wits and intelligence about you, right?
Yes, sir.
The reason why I say this, and I consciously make some type of theater of this, is because they think that everybody that actually obeys the word has lost their mind. We don't have a mind. You understand what I mean? So we'll go back here to Brother Calvin here for a second. Brother Calvin, you're an engineer, and not only that, you're a biblical teacher. You're a biblical teacher down in Florida, and you teach. So, have you received any opposition, you or your family whatsoever at all, or even in your own home?
Of course, of course. If you give me leave.
Sure.
All right. I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. My mother was Catholic. My father was Baptist. How that mix, I just don't know. I guess it don't. So growing up as a young man, grew up in the projects, very humble beginnings. You know, I had, you know, I remember doing novenas and the St. Joseph altar and all that with my mother, and then my father. We had a family church, which happens to be the oldest church for black people in the state of Louisiana. It's called the First African Baptist Church. So I grew up in the church, literally grew up in the church. But y'all had a different way for me to go. Got into the Air Force, did a little bit of traveling. And so because of that, I kind of lost ties with family at that point. So when it came down to it, I mean, after the Baptist church, I went to the Apostolic Church and finally ended up in the Assemblies of God Church. And they just knew me as, oh, he's doing it again. You know, he's off onto something different now. Okay, so, which was a blessing, because when I came into a greater knowledge, such as what we have here, it wasn't a shock, because they knew I was moving.
Right.
They knew I was progressing. So, you know, being who I am and the type of person where I was always kind of breaking from the mold, you know, it wasn't a big shock. So Come down a few years ago. I'm up in Green Bay working at one of the engineering companies up there. We design boats. We design naval vessels. You know, nothing lightweight. And I meet Kabir, and we start talking. We became accountability partners for each other. Remember that? Yep.
Yes, sir.
And we kind of keep each other in check. We keep in contact with each other. Wherever, it doesn't matter where I am. I know he's in Green Bay. He have to call, where you at now? He might have to do that with me, but that's fine. But 2012, I made the fatal mistake of reading the Bible. It's a fatal mistake. And I got this revelation. My initial understanding was not Torah. It was not anything other than the kingdom. That's the revelation that the Father chose to give me at that time. And I started talking to all the people in the Assembly of God Church and Kabir, and it's like everybody's looking at me crazy. You know, you ever heard that term, looking at you like a cow at a new gate? Oh, man, it's like... You say the gospel is the death, burial, and resurrection. This book says that the gospel is that the kingdom is at hand. Am I going to believe you, or am I going to believe what's written here for 2,000 years? So, you know, it caused me to have to break from even the AG church at that time. Because when I started to come up with questions, I had no answers. You know, you're my pastor, you're a deacon along with me in the church, or you're a minister along with me in the church, and I come up to you with a question of what it says, and you have nothing, silence, crickets, right? So, okay, well, all right, I got to walk this path alone, so that's what I did. So I'm down in Florida. Yah has blessed me to be able to go from so far Canada down to South America, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and I'm proud to say it. You can pray, death, burial, and resurrection. There's nothing wrong with that. That's in there, okay. But if you want to know what Christ preached, he didn't preach his own death, burial, and resurrection. He preached the kingdom. So that's what I do. Well, come down a few years later. Well, I'm studying, and I need to look into this, and it says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. I've been seeking the kingdom for a couple of years now. Well, what's this righteousness? Righteousness, right? Okay, got to jump into this. And when I saw that apart from keeping his commandments, you have no righteousness.
That's right.
It revolutionized my world. It revolutionized my world. A few years later, talking to Kabir. Hey, we're having some problems at the house. I'm in Seattle at the time, and I'm heading back to Panama City, and we decide to make a route. You know, there's a quicker way to get from Seattle to Florida than going through Wisconsin, right? So, but we went through Wisconsin. My brother's having a problem, and turns out the day, you know, we had been talking steadily to both. When we get there, it turns out that's the day she had made her exit. I don't know, did she move it up a little bit because she saw we were coming? Because she didn't want to confront me. She didn't want to confront me.
Or your wife.
Yeah, really. So we get there, and it's like, okay, Pastor Dowell, I got to check this joke out. I'm sorry, you know. I don't know this man. So I started watching some of your videos, and I saw that you came from a kingdom background. In some of your earlier videos, I said, you know, this man is on to something. I got to look at a few of these things. He's preaching righteousness, and I had to tell Kabir, you know, I have no judgment against this man. There's nothing but he's solid in the word. He's teaching. Not only is he following the commandments, but he's teaching others. He's not going to be little in the kingdom, okay? And he has a community of people that he's pulling together around him in the idea of righteousness. I have no judgment against this man. And then we came here. We came here for, what was it, atonement.
Tabernacle.
Was it Tabernacle?
No, the trumpet. Feast of Trumpets.
Was it Trumpet? Oh, Feast of Trumpets. Yes, Feast of Trumpets. And when I felt the love and the community and the peace that was here, it's like, you know, I got to come back. and so I'm here. So, you know, in talking about my brother Kabir, yes, I come from an engineering background. I design naval vessels to this day. That's where I make my livelihood. You know, and having been one that has been called to preach the true gospel, when it came to Kabir, I couldn't tell him that this is not a place where he should not fellowship, where he should forsake fellowship for any reason, because there's too much of the foundation of truth and righteousness here for me to turn anyone away. You know, my family still doesn't understand me. They never will, you know, until they come to a knowledge of the truth. But they recognize that I've always been on the forefront of a lot of things, and never been really a lagger in any of those things. If I get a whiff of something being the truth, I'm gonna sniff it out. You know, that's just the way I'm made. And you know, I was glad to be, you know, kind of like a her for, you know, like you remember Abraham, not Abraham, but Moses had her and Aaron on one side holding his hands up. I was glad to be that for Kabir, and to help him to walk through this very difficult transition that he's had to go to. I don't wish it on anybody, but it's like I was telling him, I believe the reason why he is able to go through this, because he has been given the strength to do it. He's been given a mantle to show that it might be rough. It might be a hard road to hoe, but he's obviously given him the strength to do it, and to be a beacon for the other men to say, look, it might not be easy, but you can live it and you can stay faithful.
That's right.
So,
well, hallelujah. We got one more here. These some wonderful testimonies. We started talking about family there, but I guess they can't help it though, huh?
Yeah.
It's going to reach these people though, which is good. All right, this brother Moody. You up there in the upper part up there, it's so cold, I don't like that stuff.
Yes, sir.
Kabir likes that stuff. I haven't been up there since 98, and I ain't planning on going back either because it's too cold up there.
Yes, sir.
But anyway, my brother, the first time you and your family, y'all finally made it here. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Thank you for having us,
You
Pastor.
made it. You're welcome. You're welcome. So how have you and your family have fared since coming to the knowledge of the truth of keeping the commandments?
Well, I didn't come from any religious background. My wife did. She comes from a traditional Catholic family, and boy, did they make up for it. You know, there was a lot of opposition. We tried to have long suffering. Again, we didn't try to preach to them. We just tried to have that mutual respect, and it wasn't working. And finally, I had to say, enough, no more. It was becoming detrimental to my walk, to our walk. I'm still so new to this, and there's a reason why I have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I couldn't listen with all of that negativity, all that noise. So I've got babies to raise, you know, and this world has it so backwards. They always say, you know, I love my children. I love my children. Oh, okay. Oh, I die for my children. Yeah, but you're not living for them. And it's just so backwards. So, you know, as we go down this road, we're walking, we're listening, and yeah, there was a lot of opposition from my wife's family. A lot. She is one of 9 children in her family. We don't speak to any one of them. So it's okay though, because I've seen more order and love in the past 12 hours than I've ever seen from years of knowing. So, very good.
Hallelujah. All right, I forgot there's one more, but Brother Israel. No, you can't hide over there, man. So, have you had any opposition whatsoever at all from natural family members? And if so, not only just speak to the opposition, but what has been your solution?
My biggest opposition was my own wife. You know, we grew up Power Pentecostal. We've been married 22 years. We were the we were the, how you say, the first lady and first man, as they say, in the Pentecostal faith. You know, we were known among, as they say, the upper echelons in Pentecostalism, and even pastored a church for some time. And but I knew there was more. I knew there was more, especially between my wife and I. She always used to tell me, "Why do you bother these teachers with these questions, especially about Christmas and Easter and all these pagan holidays that they have out there?" And they never had an answer for me. It was just something they did. It was called, my favorite word, tradition. That was my favorite word. I said, well, I don't agree with that. But anyway, neither here or there. But as far as opposition, it was my own wife. And literally sitting down with her and going verse by verse and explaining to her the process of how we came from here, from greasy grace, to being righteous and honoring the Father. And we have to do this. We cannot. My only jeopardy was to I want to ensure that I make it. And it's my responsibility to make, at that time I felt it was my responsibility to tell you at least the truth of the matter, and then you can make your own decision from that point on. It was at a point where I was about, if it didn't come to pass, I was going to leave my wife, to be honest. Because I can't. I just can't. When you come to this level of truth, the Father presses upon you to make a choice. Either you honor me, either you honor me, or you don't.
Amen, brother.
Amen.
That's it. It's a 1 and a 0. That's it. And I had to choose the 1.
Hallelujah. Well, I tell you what, I can't help this, but I got to hit here. Brother, you told me that you two almost got divorced.
Yes, sir.
Is that right? And now look at you.
Hallelujah.
Now you're following him. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any issues or trouble following him now that he's following the Most High?
No, sir.
Why?
Because I delight in it. I find it a joy, and I love to do it.
You talking like that and you was just getting ready to get divorced? What?
That's Samoan.
That's good. Yeah, you're from the island of Samoa, right?
Yes, sir.
And now you're in love with your husband.
I do.
You follow your husband as
I
your
respect
head.
him.
You respect him.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you mean the RESPECT? That one. Hallelujah. Ain't that beautiful, my brother?
I won't give it up for anything. Nothing at all, sir.
All right, so Pastor Corey, it's been real.
Yes, sir.
And they're freezing out here now because we've been out here for a little bit.
Yes, sir.
And that just speaks to the love that we actually have going on here. Listen, everybody out there, this is not a bash family member session or something like this. You got to hear heartfelt testimonies, people who actually love their family, love them enough to tell them the truth. Paul said in Galatians 4:16, have I become your enemy? Because I tell you the truth, and no doubt we become people's enemy, not because we wanted to, but they chose to become the enemies, because we have stood enough to tell them the truth. All we would ask is that you at least respect the people and their choices and their decisions as being adults in a civil society. But not only that, at least have the spirituality to open up that book and not be afraid of it, and prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. Check it out to see if it's so. Pastor Corey, I'll give you the last word.
With all that's been said, Pastor, I encourage everybody who watches this video, share this. I want you to sit down and really make sure you understand where the testimonies are coming from. These are coming from the hearts of men and women who did what the book said, and that's sell everything, put everything down, get rid of all the things in the past, and do all that you can to follow the only one you need to follow in this day, and that's Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, because we know that he has given us a way and a salvation that no other man, no other being can give us. This is powerful. I just hope that you really, really sit down and be encouraged behind this, Pastor. Thank you.
All right, with that, we bid you all shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
Most I be with y'all.
watch that right now.